Chip Rogers, and welcome to the AAHOA Educational Experience. We thank you for being with us today. My special guest this week as we talk about PACs, and we'll define that here in just a minute. We start with Alkesh Patel, new national chairman for AAHOA. Thank you for being with us, Alkesh. To his left is Bruce Patel, who is a director at large, and Anurag Varma, who is an attorney with Patton & Boggs, one of the nation's premier legal institutes, we'll call it. And I want to start with you, Anurag. We hear this term PAC, and sometimes it gets lost on people what these terms mean and these letters mean. And PAC stands for Political Action Committee. But what does that really mean in a legal sense?
In a legal sense, it's a vehicle for political giving. You can give as an American citizen or a permanent resident. You can contribute to a campaign for a candidate for a seat in government. For the context for this discussion, let's just focus on federal. A federal political action committee allows you to give collectively. It's a fund. And so if Alkesh, Bruce, and I all decide that we want to support the same type of person, we want to support somebody who supports people like us, good-looking people, then we would say, well, why don't we, instead of just giving each $100, why don't we collectively give $300, and even people who can't show up to the meeting, get them to give 5 or 6 people who all think like us, and it's a way for us to have a vehicle, a legal vehicle under law for contributing to campaigns.
And I think that's important because PACs, as you say, it's a collection of individuals who are contributing to a political action committee, but it's usually based on a theme that ties all those individuals together, which is why you see PACs across the entire political spectrum. I'm not sure how many there are, but thousands. And they usually have something in the center that's bringing all these people or attracting them together. And so when you hear the word PAC, it doesn't necessarily mean a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, you could have a PAC interest for doctors who want to save the world, I suppose.
That's right. And what we've created here at AAHOA is an AAHOA PAC. And if you look at what AAHOA believes in, the issues they fight for, better laws and regulations for the hospitality industry, that they fight for less burdensome rules for businesses in general. And also, every now and again, AAHOA really takes an interest in issues that affect Asian Americans, in particular Indian Americans. And although when you talk about a PAC, you're purely, from a legal sense, talking about a legal vehicle for giving money to campaigns. However, it's difficult to look at that without looking at the deeper meaning of when you all come together to give, what is it that's bringing you together? And the things that I just named are what bring contributors to the AAHOA PAC together.
And Alkesh, following up on that from an AAHOA perspective, I think some people have a misunderstanding of a PAC. They think maybe it's partisan in nature, that you have a PAC that just gives to Republicans or a PAC that just gives to Democrats. And that may actually occur. But from an AAHOA standpoint, it's more of a, what do the interests that AAHOA have, and how does that PAC contribute to whomever that's a member of Congress who support those interests? Democrat or Republican, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, and Chip, as Anurag explained, as our lobbyist, we have a governmental affairs committee. So it's not like that we only go out and support only a particular party. So there is a process for it. So when a member gives to a PAC, definitely we have a national PAC, and we have the special people who are monitoring that. And then from AAHOA side, giving it to it is that governmental affairs committee, every request comes in, and then we do our due diligence to make sure that whoever we're going to give it to, if it's a House, Senate, or a candidate that is running for it, what we make sure is that we look at the view. We have a questionnaire that we send out, and in that questionnaire, there are particular questions that are in there that we put in for us to determine that if these candidate has similar views of AAHOA and support to the lodging industry and Asian community or not. And then only the Governmental Affairs Committee and we decide that what part and how much that goes to support that individual. So, there's a process in place to determine. So it doesn't go to just the one party. It's always to the individual who supports the industry and the views that AAHOA and the Asian community has.
And Bruce, let's follow up on that, because I'll give a good example I think that is of interest to AAHOA members has been this public policy debate over what are known as OTCs. We've talked about it on this show many times before, and that's certainly not a Democrat or Republican issue, but from an AAHOA member, you want to support someone that supports fair taxation, and you don't want to support one who wants to give an exemption to just one industry. And so I guess that's a good example of an AAHOA issue that you're going to look at before you decide to give PAC money to somebody.
Well, like our chairman alluded to, we have an application that we give just to get an idea of, and maybe application is the wrong word, but what the candidate stands for. And that, again, we don't look at Democrat or Republican, we look at ideas. And I think last year and years past, we've given to about 20 to 30 different candidates over the last 3 years each year. And if you look at those 20 to 30 candidates, it's Democrats and Republicans. But we're looking at folks that, number one, are in line with the hospitality industry and the hospitality industry's best interest. And number two, also recognize the contributions that Asian Americans and Indian Americans have made on the hospitality industry. And so, like Anurag was saying, those are the folks that we need to support. And those are the folks that we need to help get elected. And for no other reason than to actually support our industry and help our industry grow.
Anurag, let's follow up a little bit on where you started, and that is, we talked about what actually constitutes a PAC and what it means, but what are some of the legal restrictions that a PAC faces, and what are some of the legal advantages that a PAC has over an individual giving?
Well, in terms of legal restrictions, there are a few. One is PAC contributions cannot be associated with specific legislation. For example, you can't say, Congressman, if you support this bill, I will get the PAC to give you that money. Remember, in the American political model, contributing to campaigns is designed to be a person or a group of people giving money to somebody because they believe in that person becoming an elected official. And that's definitely in the law parsed out. The other restrictions also have to do with federal and state. In many instances, there are ways that a federal PAC can comply with state laws and get approval to give to state and local candidates. And sometimes you cannot, but those are issues that need to be navigated. And again, as I mentioned earlier, who gives to a PAC? Corporations cannot give to the type of PAC that AAHOA has. Later on, we'll probably talk about other types of giving vehicles, but the type of PAC AAHOA has, it has to be individual contributors, and there's a limit of $5,000. So there are a number of different legalities that go through it, but the advantages of using the vehicle of a PAC allows you to not only give collectively, which has a strength of its own, but secondly, it allows you to be noticed and recognized, as we've discussed in the past, this group of us have, is that when you have created a fund that is dedicated towards giving to people that you believe are worthy of getting your contribution, people start to notice and want to, and start trying to want to be worthy of your affection, which is great, which is wonderful. And we would, and if somebody does make an effort to be attractive to us, we will absolutely. There's everything, all positive in us getting in that relationship.
Alkesh, we've got just a minute before the break, but I want to follow up on that a little bit. You have been obviously attending AAHOA events in Washington, D.C. for a long time. As the PAC has grown, as the involvement of AAHOA on Capitol Hill has grown, you've really seen a dynamic change in the recognition of who AAHOA is and the number of members of Congress who actually understand what AAHOA is all about, haven't we?
Absolutely, and perfect example is that on a small business committee and on the funding last year when we went up there as AAHOA as a small businesses and in the lodging industry, we were able to at least get our voice out there to show that the concern and then the banking, the funding issue, credit crisis is really hurting AAHOA members and the lodging industry, and extension of the SBA 504 program for the refi is an example of it. So, and if we contribute to a senator or a congressman, and that doesn't mean that there are certain issues that we have a different views on, that they will have the same views on. But at least we sit on the table and they hear that what are the real issues are, and AAHOA's and its members, and then they go out and debate it to make sure that we come to a resolution, or at least there is a plan in place where they can come to us and say, look, these might work and these might not work, if it's part of a legislation or something that is moving forward. But we are on the table discussing our issues one-on-one with them.
All right, we need to take a quick time out. We're talking about political action committees, and we'll be back with my guests coming up right after this. Welcome back to the AAHOA Educational Experience. My guests again this week, Alkesh Patel, the National Chairman, Bruce Patel, a Director at Large, and Anurag Varma, an attorney with Patent Boggs. Let's start with you, Anurag. We hear this term PAC. We've really talked about in the last segment what a PAC actually is. What are some of the big names in the PAC world, and in particular the ones in the hospitality PAC world?
Sure, great question. We have in the United States some very large political action committees, and it won't surprise you to know that the top 2 or 3 categories are defense contractors, where what the U.S. government does in terms of laws and regulating that industry and giving out government contracts means hundreds of billions of dollars to that industry. You won't be surprised to know that trial lawyers who benefit by subtle changes in the law and liability all across the board, whether it be slip and falls or product liability, benefit, and so they have a big interest in being involved politically. Labor unions are very strong. Business organizations like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and others, and even law and lobbying firms such as our own, because we serve a number of interests and we need to be strong. In the hospitality industry, the numbers are interesting. You have some brands, some flags that have decided to be very strong. Marriott is #1 in terms of giving, and #2 in terms of the size of their existing PAC. While Starwood doesn't even appear in the top 10 in either category. Hilton appears to use a strategy, if you just look at the numbers, where they raise a bunch of money for their PAC fund and then spend it all, and then raise it again at the beginning of the next election cycle. And all these things start giving you a sense of how the different players move. If you want to know where AAHOA is, we have the 4th largest existing PAC, yet we're 7th on spending. We spend on an annual basis about $200,000 to $300,000 less than Marriott. Spending leads to relationships. But that's a little bit of the playing field of how it looks. American Hotel and Lodging Association, they're up near the top of both categories, both in terms of how much they raise every cycle, and when I say every cycle, it means every election cycle, so every 2 years, and how much they spend. Just a little insight.
And Alkesh, let's talk about that, because he mentioned some of the other PACs that are essentially in the hospitality industry that on many occasions AAHOA is going to have a strong relationship with over particular issues. And it would seem to me that you would have an AAHOA PAC maybe sometimes joining forces with an AAHLA or someone like that to really push on certain things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And not only AAHLA, AAHLA also has a state chapter. So we do contribute to the state chapters. So for example, we have already partnered with the 2 of the PACs at the THNLA and the CHNLA. So for the members in those states who are contributing to our national PAC, there's a separate form where they have an option to click that certain percentage of their political action campaign contributions can go particularly for the state PAC. Right. So we do have right now partnership with 2 of it, and we're looking forward to extending that to other states to contribute to the PACs where the members comes in, because state level involvement is very important. Not only the national, there are a lot of issues at the state level also that needs to be addressed, and that's called a grassroots, because you have a lot of grassroots at the local and state level that you need to be involved, and there's separate PAC for that. So national PAC cannot contribute to the state because this is for the federal, and we have a separate PAC that we contribute to the state associations, which gets used to campaign for the representative at the state levels.
And I think that's critical. We saw an issue recently where AAHOA was definitely involved, and I think it highlights the need for PAC contributions at the state level and involvement at the state level. We oftentimes think about what Congress is doing, what the president is doing, but in California you had the fair franchising issue recently, and that is something where you're talking about the state of California, enormous number of people in the hospitality industry. And that could have been a major change in law. So it's important to have this activity happening at the state level as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I say the grassroots is very important. So not only you contribute to the national, where we can contribute to the national on the Hill, but at the state level. And then that's why being involved with the state PACs are important. And we have already got 2 states. We're looking forward to do it with more states. But we also have, as regional directors and ambassadors, when there's a mayor race going on, when there is a local level at the state senators and state representatives races going on, we do the separate fundraisers for them, and then for those, Anurag can talk about it, but the company can contribute for that, and there are different guidelines for giving it to the state representatives and then mayors and for the state senators and stuff.
And Bruce, I want to follow up on, he mentioned the candidates that you give to. I know that's one of your goals, is to expand the number of candidates that AAHOA is actively engaged with, because as Anurag said, this is all about building relationships, and the best way to build a relationship is to personally invest in somebody. Well,
Anurag hit that statistic right on the button. We may be 4th in our PAC fund size, but we're 7th in spending. And the last few years, we've supported anywhere from 20 to 30 candidates each year. And I believe we need to triple that number to around anywhere from 70 to 90 candidates every year in order to become politically active and politically involved and politically recognized. We have to be able to spend and support candidates that are in line with AAHOA and the hospitality industry.
And Anurag, I'm going to give you the final word. We've got a couple of minutes left. We've talked now for many episodes, two different shows, about PACs and how important they are. I don't know that you could overstate how important it is for an organization like AAHOA or any organization in the hospitality industry or any other business sector to have a PAC where they can show the members of Congress, and let's just be honest about it, the people that are writing the laws that could change your business, show them a strong sign of strength.
Absolutely, and we're going to be talking in the future about lobbying, and that's a separate but related topic. However, political participation is what we should call everything. And in order to participate in the politics of this country, which directly affect your businesses and your bottom lines, you need 3 things. You need the ability to educate, you need the infrastructure, which allows you to get your message to a congressional office, and you need access. If AAHOA is able to put together some materials, you fly to Washington, and you're all ready to go, but their doors are locked, it's all for naught. So education, infrastructure, and access. And when you talk about a relationship that's built through volunteering for a campaign, through contributing to a campaign, through being a friend to a candidate or a member of Congress, you're talking about ways to get access. And it cannot be overstated that the best access doesn't come when you pick up the phone and you call Anurag. The best access comes when you get involved. You write a check, and what this whole segment has been focused on is that don't do it alone, let's all do it together. and we're all like-minded, and this is such a valuable conversation, and I really do commend AAHOA for having it, because this is exactly how laws are influenced, changed, and policy is shaped in the United States.
Absolutely. Well, we are out of time, but I want to thank my guests. We'll start with Alkesh. Thank you for being here, and Bruce Patel, and of course, as always, Anurag Varma. You've been watching the AAHOA Educational Experience. If you have any questions, you can send me an email, chip@ahoa.com. That's chip@ahoa.com. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week.